Welcome back to the channel, Toyota Fanatic 81. In today's video, we're going over cost-effective modifications that you can do to your truck without breaking the bank. Let's face it, most of us are on a budget. We have bills, we have a family to take care of, we can't afford to just do everything to our truck at once. We have to slowly build out our truck over time. After a while, you start to get a sense of what you think is cheap or expensive. My specific cutoff is $500. And I know that might sound completely arbitrary. Your cutoff might be above or below $500, but for the purposes of this video, anything $500 or less is cheap. Anything more than $500 is expensive. Now let's get into it. The first thing on the list, and by far the cheapest, is this 13-inch radio antenna. When I first got the truck, it was completely stock, but even then I still had issues with the radio antenna getting caught in car washes and parking garages. When I lifted it, it made it even worse. So the simple solution to this was to get a shorter radio antenna. And this was a quick job, super quick. It takes about a minute. Even though this antenna is more about function than fashion, I have to admit, it looks much better on the truck than the stock antenna. One thing I should mention about this is if you're out in the country, you're on a back road, you might not get the same reception as you did with your stock antenna. But this won't be a problem for most of us because of a wonderful thing called an app. The vast majority of us, myself included, use our phones for music, news, or audiobooks. If we need Sirius XM, that antenna is already built into the truck. So I'm not too worried about a shorter antenna not picking up AM or FM very well in the country. I got my phone. Number 2 on the list, and I'm grouping them together, taillights, headlights, and fog lamps. Now these parts can be expensive. For example, a pair of Morimoto headlights may run you $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, depending on how elaborate you're trying to get with them. But there are taillights, headlights, and fog lamps that you can get for less than $500 that look pretty good. The thing I love about lighting is that it doesn't have to cost too much, but it makes such a huge difference to the look of your vehicle. It can really improve the appearance of your truck. Next thing on the list, painting your brake calipers. This is one of my favorite modifications because it's relatively cheap and it makes a huge difference in the appearance of your vehicle. And the beauty of this job is that it can be done on or off the truck. In fact, I already have 2 caliper painting videos waiting for you. The first time I did this, I left the calipers on the 4Runner. Now this involved extra prep because I didn't want to get paint on anything except for the calipers, but when the job was done, it was well worth it. The second time I did this job, it was right before I changed out the calipers, rotors, and brake pads on the Tundra. Painting the calipers before they went on the truck was far easier and required much less prep. Painting the calipers is a big bang for your buck because it will not cost you a lot and your truck will look way better. Let's talk about these tow mirrors. This is not a 1-ton truck, but still, a half-ton pickup is a relatively wide, long vehicle. It can actually be easy to miss people or animals when you're operating this thing. For me, these tow mirrors have made a huge difference in terms of safety for operating this vehicle. Now, one caveat I have to bring up is that these are GM-style tow mirrors, and these things are a bitch to install. These are not like the Toyota style tow mirrors where it's just plug and play. There's actually quite a bit of wiring to do. To take off the door panel, remove the speakers, there's a whole bunch of things you have to do if you want to wire these things up properly. I feel that these mirrors were worth the trouble, but you probably won't. So if you're looking more for a plug and play application, you may as well get the Toyota style tow mirrors. They still look good. You'll still get the main mirror on top and then the blind spot mirror on the bottom. And both the GM style and the Toyota style tow mirrors will come with the electronic adjustment, the heat, blind spot monitoring, and the signal indicator. Like any other tow mirror, these extend. Now, I cheaped out, I went with the manual extension, but if you're willing to go beyond that $500 mark, you can get mirrors that electronically extend. Now, I don't tow anything. I mainly use my truck to carry people or equipment. But like I said before, the tow mirrors have made a huge difference in the safety of operating this vehicle. And they look far better than the stock mirrors ever looked. Next up, Fender Flares. I put Fender Flares on the truck for 2 main reasons. First, they actually do help to keep the truck cleaner. My current tires are wider than the stock tires were, and my wheels have a negative 24mm offset. This means that I have about 3 to 4 inches of wheel poke. The term wheel poke simply refers to how far past the fender your wheels and tires stick out. When I'm driving through water or mud, the Fender Flares actually keep most of that shit from flying up onto the body of the truck. The second reason I got the Fender Flares, and this is just my personal opinion, I think Fender Flares make trucks look better. I know that not everyone agrees with that, but that's okay. In my opinion, the Fender Flares give the truck a wider, beefier, more muscular look. Now generally, Fender Flares come in black, but of course you can take it to a shop and have them color matched, or you could do it yourself. I chose to paint the Fender Flares myself, and I paid far more in time than I did in money. I'm not gonna go into the details of painting the Fender Flares, I have already made a video on that, but I can tell you I put a ton of clear coat on my Fender Flares so that they would stand up to the elements. And with a lot of layers comes a lot of time. So it's a time-intensive job, but in terms of money, it's actually quite cheap. And in my opinion, painting the Fender Flares is completely worth it because the truck looks much better when the Fender Flares are color matched. And that is the perfect segue into the last relatively cheap modification on this list. Color matching the door handles and blacking out the grille and badges. Oop, I've got a hater alert coming up. Bro, don't you know you can just buy a new grille and new handles and new badges? Yes, I do know that. I also know how much it would cost. And since we're talking about relatively cheap modifications here, it doesn't make sense if I put a new grille on the list. And let's put costs to the side for a second. I like working on my truck. I have no problem blacking out the grille or the badges or color matching the door handles. And painting those parts of the truck make a huge difference. You can't even argue this. The truck looks far better with blacked out badges, a blacked out grille, and color matched handles. Now, my cheap modification list is basically complete, but I still have 2 honorable mentions to go through. This is because they're just over that 500 mark that I was telling you about before. The first one is a cold air intake. Now this is always a controversial one in the car and truck world. No, the air is not colder. You're still drawing ambient air from the fender. The point of mine is that it's bigger. It's a bigger air box. That means I'm getting a larger volume of air into the engine. Gives me a bump in horsepower. That's all I care about. The second one is my set of step-up bars. Right from the start, I knew I was gonna put Nfab step-up bars on this truck. Nfabs look far better than the garbage step-up bars that they put on these trucks in the factory. The ones I put on the truck are called Nfab Nerf bars. Not the most elaborate step-up bars. I mean, you can get ones that retract from the truck and then go back in. But they still make the truck look better, in my opinion, and they also make it easier for people, like my wife, to get into the truck. The only reason they're not on the list is because they're just above that $500 mark that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Now, I want to know, what is your cutoff? Where do you draw the line between expensive or cheap? Is it $300? Is it $1,000? Let me know. Thank you once again for visiting the channel and checking out this video. If you found it helpful, please give it that thumbs up. It's a huge help for the channel. And if you're new here, welcome. You've got to subscribe. You got to check out these videos, because if you own a second-gen Tundra, this is the place you need to be to see what kind of modifications you can do and how you can make this truck your own. That's it. We're done here. I'll see you on the next modification or do-it-yourself video.